Hello, Dave Hurwitz here at ClassicsToday.com with the sequel to my music chat on the question of vibrato in Beethoven's orchestra. A commentator asked whether or not the pieces that I spoke about as evidence for playing techniques in the 1850s in France actually existed. That is, Edouard Batiste's transcriptions of all of the slow movements of the Beethoven symphonies as French liturgical music. And the answer is yes, they do. Here they are. Organist Diego Innocenzi on the Aeolus label presents all of Batiste's Beethoven transcriptions. It's actually more than just the symphonies. He also transcribed some music from the ruins of Athens and a bit of the Kreutzer Sonata and the finale of the Fifth Symphony. And it's all on this disc. He also includes some more of Batiste's organ music generally. And the most amazing of all of those other selections is something called an orage or thunderstorm. It seems that in those days, in the 1840s and 50s and 60s in France, people actually went to church to hear the orage. Now, most of these were improvised pieces, but two of them have been written down. One of them, at least two of them, and one of them is by Batiste. What the orage was, or what it did was, the organist would begin with a pastoral prelude of some kind, music evocative of the countryside and nature and shepherds and things like that. And then he would start hitting the low pedals and you'd hear little rumbly sounds. This would build into a thunderstorm improvisation of some kind, culminating in him hitting what was known as the thunder pedal, which organs in those days had. This was a gadget that pushed down all of the lowest notes on the organ in one shuddering, shaking, foundation rattling tone cluster. And it does indeed have one of those things here, and you get to hear it in this performance, and it's pretty room shaking. It's phenomenal. Critics of the performance of French organ music in those days, of course, were aghast at the orage and aghast that people actually came to hear it as opposed to the sermon and the other wonderful religious things on offer during the Mass. But they did. And the answer to that, of course, was that, well, God made nature, and therefore imitating nature is to simply encourage listeners to think more of spiritual things. And if you believe that, I've got some stock in the Penn Central Railroad you may want to still be interested in. I mean, it's all nonsense. But the piece itself is great fun. Batiste's music fell into complete oblivion after he died, but he was incredibly well known in his day. He had many friends all over the world, including a lot of them in the United States, where all of his music was published, including the Beethoven transcriptions, and performed in churches in the U.S., apparently. I was actually able to find in the Library of Congress copies of his music in the music libraries of the organist at Trinity Church in New York. This stuff was disseminated and it was performed. And it does give us an idea of how vibrato sounded in orchestras of Beethoven's day. So you can hear it. As I said before, there's a review on ClassicsToday.com with sound clips, although that's behind the paywall. You have to be an insider member to hear it. Otherwise, this is available on the Aeolus label. I'm pretty sure you could still get it direct from the label. It may be available on streaming services, but one way or another, if you're curious about the sound of the orchestra and the organ in Beethoven's day, you can get it. And one more word about this recording, which is quite remarkable. Innocenzi performs on the last surviving Merklin-Schütze organ from 1857 in this case, but from this period that survives unaltered. So this is the original organ with the original pipes and supposedly the original sounds that Batiste would have heard when he made these transcriptions. Give it a shot if you're curious and keep on listening. There's a whole world of stuff out there to discover. Thank you.